Colorado's Democrats race to push through new regulations on the oil and gas industry. Tonight, we hear from two women on opposite sides of the issue. Erin Martinez lost her husband and brother when an abandoned gas line exploded.
I know that this is a fight against one of the biggest industries in the world.
Tracy Bentley represents that industry.
I don't see anything in this bill that would have prevented an accident such as that.
We'll also catch up with the couple caught in an avalanche on I-70 over the weekend. We truth test Governor Hickenlooper's introduction to America as he announces for president. And we celebrate the next neighbors who dug deep, at least a few inches deep, to help our community. That's next. Democrats want to pass Colorado's strictest oil and gas regulations in history, and they want to do it quickly. The bill that dropped late Friday is being sped through the Capitol, dueling rallies and then a hearing tomorrow. Tonight, the energy industry tells Next that legislators might have accidentally put a temporary ban on new development in this bill. But first, our Marshall Zellinger sits down with Erin Martinez for her only television interview. The woman who lost her husband and brother in a house explosion caused by an abandoned and severed gas line, she says she's been allowed a say in these proposed regulations.
There's a part of it that is some of my specific language that I wanted to see in there, specifically about abandoned flow lines and shut-in wells, as well as disclosure.
Erin Martinez is not a lawmaker, but what happened to her family and her home in Firestone has put her in the same room as them. Who do you blame for what happened?
You know, I think, you know, I would have to blame the industry. I think that there was multiple opportunities to see that this abandoned flow line was not abandoned properly.
The 2017 explosion, caused by an abandoned and severed gas line still attached to an oil and gas well, killed Erin's husband Mark and her brother Joey. They didn't know what was under their home, and Erin has since moved and found out, despite being told otherwise, an abandoned well is right along her fence line.
Just simply asking them to map it or tell us where all of the stuff is at isn't good enough. It has to be accurate. So I understand that it's going to be a big process, and I understand that it's going to cost money. But I think that we owe it to everyone, for everyone to know what they're living around. You need to know what you're living on top of, what you're living next to, what you're sending your kids to school, what's around the school.
With new legislation to be debated tomorrow at the Capitol, Erin wants public disclosure of what's underground, information that state regulators have, but don't have to make public.
I know that this is a fight against one of the biggest industries in the world, and I think that it isn't just going to be a couple months of a fight for me. I think it's going to be a lifelong thing. You know, I really want to make sure that this change happens and that nobody is ever sitting in this chair having this conversation with you again.
Erin told us that she is building a new home, and based on every bit of public information she can find, she does not believe that there is an abandoned well near this one, though she admits she can't be 100% sure. The bill summary on these new oil and gas regulations says that new development will be put on hold while the new rules are implemented. That's a process that could take time, perhaps more than a year. Now, the actual text of the bill says state regulators may halt new development. Two different things. Tracy Bentley, head of the Colorado Petroleum Council, says she assumes that the temporary ban on development was a mistake by legislators who didn't know what they were doing and didn't talk to the industry.
The oil and natural gas industry is a $32 billion contributor to Colorado's economy. And if we put a moratorium on this industry for an extended length of time, you can see economically how we're going to suffer. Almost $300 million a year goes to schools that depend on that revenue, as well as first responders, health, transportation, and as well as directly to the state to fund important water projects and many other things. So I don't think it would be economically wise to put a moratorium on an industry that contributes so much, along with 232,000 jobs.
They're saying they want to give local communities more control. They want to put health, safety, and the environment first. Are those not bad goals?
Those are not bad goals, and we wouldn't necessarily disagree with them. Our main issue, Kyle, is the process or lack thereof by which this has been handled. There are significant issues in this bill, all of which need thorough debate and at least discussion, and perhaps some compromise is needed, but we didn't get that opportunity. A couple of meetings we would suggest are not a thorough stakeholder discussion, and we didn't see the bill before it was dropped.
And they would say that industry should not be writing legislation to regulate itself.
Right, and we would suggest that that's correct, but we certainly should have an influence, or at least be able to see the legislation before it's dropped.
I understand that you don't like the legislation. What can you practically do to stop or change it?
Sure. We would like to slow it down and walk through and figure out if there's areas to compromise so that the bill won't be so economically devastating, and give a lot of more voices to the process. So we're just asking, our first ask is for time to see and sit down if there's a way to come together and make this a better bill.
Bentley says if the bill passes, they will consider gathering signatures to put the issue before voters on the ballot. That would make it the second year in a row that Coloradans would get a vote on whether to restrict oil and gas operations. Two quick updates on other important pieces of legislation. Democrats confirmed today they will introduce a bill to abolish the death penalty in Colorado. And the red flag gun control bill passed the House today. That would allow a judge to order someone's guns seized if they're deemed to be a threat. The burden of proof would be on the gun owner to get them back. 2 Democrats from southern Colorado voted against that bill, which now heads to the Senate. If you ever wondered what it looks like to be caught in an avalanche, we've got you covered. Covered like the Goldman family's pickup with its dash cams rolling. Our Noel Brennan sat down with a couple caught in the second of 2 avalanches on I-70 yesterday.
Toyota, tough trucks, right?
It looks like your car on a Monday.
There's still debris on the hood.
After a ski weekend in the mountains.
You know, I noticed a few things I thought might be scratches, but looks like they're coming right off, actually.
Snow wedged in the wheel is the only sign this truck was almost buried.
It's my Toyota. I guess you could say it's my savior.
Sean Goldman
did pretty well.
Was driving on I-70 Sunday.
Yeah, we left at 4:30.
Heading home from Copper Mountain with his wife Tram and their daughter Kiera.
And she was like, "Mommy, mommy, oh my gosh, oh my gosh." And I was like, what? And I looked to the right and I saw it coming, and I was like, Sean, avalanche, avalanche.
Their 2 dash cams were rolling.
Here it comes.
And so was the wave of snow.
Just blasts us. When the impact hit us, you know, it was loud. It was complete whiteout. We couldn't see anything. I basically just let my foot off the gas and coasted, and I was trying to predict where the road would be and stay on the road, and I was hoping that I wouldn't hit a car in front of me. This is the road we're looking at.
You breathe a little deeper after surviving an avalanche.
The avalanche hit us, pushed us straight sideways off the road.
It would take them more than 6 hours to get home.
Worst driving experience ever.
They'll return to the mountains, but they may pass on the next powder day.
You know, every once in a while you kind of think about it and you go, wow, we just lived through an avalanche.
For Next, I'm Noel Brennan.
The Goldman family says a plow and a tow truck came along to help dig them out of the snow after that avalanche. It must feel so good he can finally say it.
I'm John Hickenlooper. I'm running for president.
So good that former Governor Hickenlooper just wants to keep saying it.
I'm running for president because we need dreamers in Washington.
We've known it for months. You've known it for months. He accidentally said it aloud back in November, then had to backpedal so he didn't break fundraising rules. He was in New Hampshire then. He likes that state a lot. Iowa, too. He's headed back there soon. But even after Hick taped his snazzy announcement video, which we've learned he did at the brewery in Red Rocks the day after President's Day, even after he made the video, he still could not say aloud the one thing he so badly wanted to say until today.
I'm running for president.
Hickenlooper launched his campaign for president with that video, which showcases the beauty of Colorado and also talks about the challenges he faced as governor. So let's put his big introduction to America to our truth test.
No one can predict what happens after you become governor.
That is true.
Hey, you're stealing my bit.
Sorry, back to the truth test.
With a divided legislature, we got health care coverage for nearly 95% of all Coloradans.
That's true, though it could use context. When Hickenlooper became governor in 2011, about 84% of Coloradans had health insurance. By 2017, 93.5% were insured.
We brought environmentalists and oil and gas companies to the table to create the toughest methane emissions laws in the country.
That, too, needs context. Colorado did strengthen oil and gas emissions rules. California has since instituted tougher rules. And Colorado's Democrats seem to have forgotten altogether about the Hickenlooper-era rules while they try to push new regulation.
It's been over 60 years since meaningful changes have been made to our oil and gas laws.
Then, we beat the NRA by enacting universal background checks and banning high-capacity magazines.
That's true, though it's worth noting that 3 Senate Democrats lost their seats amid recalls over gun control, and Republicans then took control of the state Senate.
An abandoned warehouse in a forgotten corner of Denver. became a successful brew pub.
That's true, and delicious.
In the end, we didn't just build a restaurant. We created a whole neighborhood that never looked back.
That's a stretch. Wynkoop did not build Lodo, but he said we, so if we means Wynkoop and, oh, I don't know, Coors Field, then I guess we'll say he's safe.
All right, there is Hickenlooper's campaign logo on the right. Does that look familiar to you? It looked familiar to former 9 News reporter Ben McKee. This is his tweet. He grabbed the photo on the left. That's the old Boulder Boulder race logo from 2015. Race organizers told us that they are glad to see a Coloradan entering the second most competitive race in the country. High schoolers tell Next why it was worth it to get up at 5 a.m. every day.
It was our first time doing something like this, and we just accomplished something so big that we didn't expect.
Now they are heading to D.C. to show them how to get stuff done. And a shout out to all the Next neighbors who got busy with a Colorado tradition over the weekend. There is a community meeting about trolling going on in Breck right now. The most famous troll of them all, Isaac Hartstone. We hope to learn tonight where exactly popular troll is going to be rebuilt come May. He was disassembled from his perch along a popular trail because neighbors considered him and the traffic to be a nuisance. The artist who made Isaac is promising a reimagined version in a new location yet to be announced. Hey, our challenge and stepped up to join a great Colorado tradition over the weekend, helping neighbors shovel out after the weekend snowstorm. Tony and Jamie and Elliot, all the great folks who sent us pictures and shared stories of the folks that they met up with when they were out doing a good deed for others over the weekend. Leah mentioned somebody cleared all the way to her bus stop. Hey, how fantastic is that? Snow is melting, but there's always an opportunity to be a good neighbor to somebody in our city.
Another cold night coming up. Not quite as cold as last night. We were -5 at DIA this morning, but single digits with wind chill values to about -8 after a day with, well, we should be in the 50s this time of year. DIA at 15, only 22 downtown, but we're trending in the right direction. California bracing for more snow. These are wind chill advisories. That does include the far eastern plains. So far, Denver not included. Monitoring a little bit of snow down across the Colorado-New Mexico line, but concerns for dangerous wind chills between Ray, Burlington, up to Sterling, and this may be extended back into the metro area tonight. We get a break between storms for the next few days and a gradual warming trend, but the mountains will be looking at a little more snowfall come Wednesday. In Denver, a cold night with a low of 3, wind chill of -8. Cold start, but a wind shift tomorrow should get us above freezing, and we'll see that warm weather trend continue to the end of the week. I am watching the mountain snowstorm Wednesday and maybe a brief snow shower here early Thursday morning, and a stronger storm taking shape for next week. While no accumulation forecast, there is the chance for snow, Kyle, on Saturday morning.
Kathy, thank you. A well-known and well-liked political strategist from our state was one of the 4 American tourists killed in a helicopter crash in Africa over the weekend. Kyle Forty died when the helicopter that he was riding in crashed on an island in Kenya last night. Investigators don't know what caused that crash. Forty most recently ran Brian Watson's Republican campaign for treasurer and ran several local district races in Colorado Springs. He was well known as an up-and-comer in Republican politics. Peter Marcus, a former political reporter for a number of newspapers in our state, was a friend of Forty's. He described him as a caring husband, father, friend, foster dad. Forty and his wife fostered children in El Paso County for 8 years. He leaves his wife and son. Imagine trying to create a 3-course meal in an hour using just 2 gas burners, no running water or electricity. Now, what if I told you pulling it off, doing it well, could get some young Coloradans into college? Our Byron Reed takes us to an unusual culinary class in Adams County.
We're going to talk about the 3 elements, the product, service, and the mix.
Every aspect about hospitality is interesting to Alasia Gutierrez.
With that third 33% food cost.
She's a senior at Adams City High School, getting a jump on her career.
I've always loved cooking and baking, but this was more of like a push to do something different.
Alicia's classroom is part of a program called ProStart, a nonprofit that gives students education in restaurant management and the culinary arts.
They start at with no knowledge at all in their very first year, many of them never having stepped foot into a professional kitchen.
A step that recently put them,
We're all first-time competitors. We've never done this before.
in a statewide contest with about 400 other high schoolers competing for scholarships from culinary schools around the nation.
They've come in at 5 a.m. for about 2 months every morning, and they worked every Saturday in order to prepare for this competition.
It's a competition where Gutierrez and her class took home first place.
We always hoped we would win. We didn't know we were really going to. And then they just called our school name, and I cried, everybody cried.
The rags to riches story, I feel, they were able to bring home collectively a little over $250,000 in scholarships. That is huge and life-changing for these students.
An adjustment that Alicia and her friends,
Everybody in here, we're all a little family now.
are ready to learn more about.
It was our first time doing something like this, and we just accomplished something so big that we didn't expect.
For Next,
We'll see you tomorrow.
I'm Byron Reed.
The school says each student walked away with about $29,000 in scholarship money from that state competition. So now in May, Adams City High goes on to represent Colorado in Washington for the Nationals.
Our next question comes from Karen in Broomfield. She wants to know, who was Chief Hosa and why is there an exit named for him on I-70?
Karen, Chief Hosa was an honorific name for Chief Little Raven. In the 1800s, he became chief of the Arapahoes when he was just 33 years old. He ended long-running wars between his people and the Comanches and the Kiowas. Deborah Parks has a campground and a lodge named after Chief Hosa. It's right near that exit on I-70 West. The most Colorado thing we saw today is a traffic backup that we love. Some of you are suspicious that I am now dressing presentably. And what's going on with our music today? That's terrifying. The most Colorado thing we saw today is a snowstorm causing a traffic tie-up. Snow already causing traffic issues at the tunnel is how this photo was captioned. Viewer from Castle Rock shared this. Summit's the dog in front, Lincoln's in the back. I love it. I love it. Who among us has not been on that side of the tunnel just waiting to get through? Share the most Colorado thing you saw today using the hashtag HeyNext, or send us photos anytime. Email next@9news.com. Sharon writes in tonight, why is Kyle finally starting to dress nicer? Today, Sharon and I had a job interview before work. Dave says, Kyle, your subject choices are sometimes like tofu key lime pie. Not my favorite, but I'm eating it. I appreciate that, Dave. Ed writes in, don't know what's better about watching Next, presentation of the news, or the display of crazy viewer comments in pretty much real time. What does that make you, Ed? And Randy writes in, taking issue with what Governor Hickenlooper says in the closing moments of his ad introducing himself to America as he runs for president, where he says that his brewery and we built Lodo. Randy correctly points out that he'd like to think that a lot of other business owners, he calls out the folks at Tattered Cover, also had a role in building up Lodo. Yep, them in the Colorado Rockies too. Got to give them some credit. We'll see you next time.